So I had such a good response to my demonstration of the little 3D printer as a ironwork design. I thought I'd have a go at stained glass windows as well. These sorts of things for miniatures are quite expensive, or you can do them in polymer clay, but it's a lot of work. So I traced this little design out. I've had a go at some other designs as well, but just for this demonstration I've traced this design out, and I don't know whether you can see, but there's still quite a lot of bits of the 3D printer filament on it. If you want to know how this is done, there's a previous YouTube video on how to draw around shapes like this with the 3D printer. So anyway, I've now got to remove all these little filaments before I can do anything. And that you can do with your fingers, or if you've got some larger bits, you can snip those little bits of filament off where they stick out. It doesn't matter too much if you've got some gaps in your work, because what we'll do later is we'll fill it in with liquid Fimo, and that'll solve the problem of the odd gap. But try not to get too many. I've got a little gap just there, where in normal work with liquid Fimo, that would cause a problem. But I realised that because this doesn't sit completely flat on the board, I was going to have to do some preparatory work before I could fill it in with liquid Fimo colours. So all I did here was fill in on the board, prepare some liquid Fimo, just plain clear translucent liquid Fimo on the board, and with my trusty butter knife spread it out all over the board in roughly the shape of this window pane. That's a curved look, like a half circle. You need to check, because you don't want to use extra liquid Fimo because it's quite expensive. I'm not going to put this on permanently because I've already prepared one. So I'll just show you how we do it, because I haven't actually finished tidying up these bits. But get it on as neatly as you can, not leaving too many gaps, because where there are gaps, you're not going to get the adhesion. So you need some liquid Fimo, or other liquid polymers are available under every bit of the design. And when you're happy that it's covering all of it, I really should put a bit more in there where there isn't any, where it hasn't stuck, but I don't want to waste it until I've done the rest of the preparatory work. So I'm going to just show you how to do this. Just stick that on there, and then take another tile and place that tile firmly on the top, and leave it for a very short while, maybe 5 minutes, because what happens then is the liquid Fimo sort of clings up against the sides of these bits of black. The reason that we have to do this first is because this is all bobbly. It's not completely smooth, and so it doesn't sit perfectly onto the tile, no matter what you do without the liquid Fimo. So that prepped, that would go in the oven for the normal liquid Fimo times, and this is the result. I'm hoping that the liquid Fimo has adhered all these little bits. I have just noticed that we've got a bit of the design missing here, what happens is when you take it off the board, sometimes bits can go missing. I haven't tried, but I'll try later on today and see if I can fill in at this point, because I imagine that the plastic will stick to the liquid Fimo where it won't stick to the tile. That's why we do the designs on paper first. So I think that the liquid Fimo will be okay to draw directly on. So you could actually prep the surface and then draw directly onto the liquid Fimo, I think, but I haven't checked it. But the problem with that is that you might still have gaps missing, and this rises up the edge. You can't see that, I don't think, but it rises up the edge to fill in the gaps. It's like it flows into the gaps. Anyway, the only problem I've got with all my liquid Fimo and oil paint colours is that my normal work concentrates on nature. So I haven't got any blue, and I do like blue in stained glass, so I've got hold of some of this cheap German store oil colours. And I think that I will like this particular blue here. I like them both actually, but I think I'll go for... Now, I might change my mind now at the last minute. Yes, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go for this blue. So all you do to prepare liquid Fimo, to colour liquid Fimo, is simply mix a little bit of olive oil, I've done it again, of oil paint into the liquid Fimo, and we don't need very much. So I've just put a little bit in the tub there, and you need a very small amount of colour. If you put too much colour in, it comes out opaque, and we want a nice translucent because we're trying to imitate glass. That's too much. I won't mix all that in. In fact, I'll just take my handy bit of tissue from here and take a bit of that off, because otherwise I'll be tempted to mix it all in. Yes, if you leave too much of the oil colour in, you'll get a sort of smelly, you'll also get a smelly mix when you're trying to bake it, because the oils in the oil colour are not designed for baking. They work very well as long as you don't have too much in. So this is a nice translucent blue. Mix it really well. Although if you don't mix it well, it just looks like antique glass, so it doesn't matter too much. I think maybe I should have left the rest of that because it's a little bit too light now. Anyway, we'll have a go with that, and if I need to mix some more, I will. So I decided to put the blue liquid Fimo into these sections around the outside, and I found this little paint spatula thing also in the same cheap German store, which has become one of my favourites. Now looking at that, I do think that I need some more and a bit more colour. So I'm just going to mix a bit more in. After telling you not too much. But this is actually quite a big area that I'm going to fill. And the good thing about this stuff is you can keep what's left over as long as you keep it in the right type of plastic. I can't remember the PE numbers for the right types of plastic, but there's loads of information on the internet, and there's a wonderful site called the Blue Bottle Tree, and run by a lady called Ginger Davis Allman, and she's done some investigations into which plastics are okay to use with polymer clays. But generally, if the plastic is a little opaque, it's okay. If it's bright and shiny and brittle, it's not very good for use with polymer clay. And I found these work. So I'm just applying this with this spatula into the sections. And the first layer of liquid Vimo is holding this second layer in. It's holding the design down firmly and flat, which I have found a problem already with the 3D printed, the 3D pen drawings, that they do want to curl a bit. So the more rigidity you can give them, the better. That's looking beautiful. I'm glad I chose that colour. So as you can see, it's about as simple, it's just like colouring in, it's about as simple as you can get. The depth of the liquid Fimo you put in will give you the strength of the colour. If you can see, that one's very shallow. I decided to change the strength of the colour and change the quantity I was using, so I left that one as it was because I didn't want it to come out a different colour. So I'll probably wipe that one out because otherwise it'll still come out a bit different. I want that beautiful strong blue. I used to live in a Victorian house with leaded lights, and those colours really are quite spectacular. And even though in my normal work I almost never use blue, it's just my favourite stained glass colour. Incidentally, this type of blue is the very best blue to mix down with yellow to form greens. The slightly turquoisey blue, even though everybody who knows anything about computers and printers would say, oh well, that's the cyan, that's the right form of blue to mix colours down. But it's absolutely useless trying to mix that particular blue down with yellows to get a natural, one of nature's greens. But this type of blue, which is a sort of marine blue, is perfect. I've seen quite a lot of sun catchers done in a similar way to this. I don't know whether, I think they use a sort of thickened paint to produce these outlines. But I'm sure it must be slower than this technique. This is rather large for 12 scale because it's about, well, this is a 6-inch tile, so this one will be about 5 inches. So that would be 5 foot across. So I'm actually working a bit big for 12 scale. Right, I still need a little bit more in that one. So I'm not worried about some of them being slightly different colours, because that happens naturally with antique stained glass. And I've got a lot of colours pre-mixed, particularly for berries like raspberry and strawberry and blackberry colours. So I've decided to use those for this little flower. but I decided I wanted to put, if I can find it, a bronzy colour right in the middle. Now, I don't know if you get bronzed glass, but I'm willing to take the risk. This is liquid Fimo mixed with a sort of mica powder, if I can get it out, because it's a bit old. It's been mixed in here for several years. I'm going to wish I hadn't chosen this one, I think. Get my stick out and see if I can give it a bit of assistance. There we go. So that'll come out metallic, hopefully. I know that's not a standard stained glass colour, but there was something about this design that made it look a bit, well, a bit suggestive if I did it in pink. So I've got a little bit of this liquid on the top of the black, so I'm just going to take it off. I'm sure I can touch that up anyway if it shows up later. So I'll start with lighter pinks in the middle and work out with to darker pinks, I think. And then maybe put a purpley bit in there. So you can apply this direct in the smaller spaces. It will run slightly itself and settle into the space. You don't have to have 100 bottles of liquid Fimo, you can just mix a lot of little bits, but it's just that I happen to have a few years worth built up. I keep meaning to get myself an upside down stand for these. So that's the thing, I get annoyed waiting for it to come out. These might not come out much different from each other. Don't put too much in. Now that's where I've got a bit missing and I really want the darker purple in there. So I'm going to have to bodge it a bit. I don't know whether it'll work or not. But I want this colour in the middle. I'm going to turn that darker purple upside down ready. Otherwise you're going to be watching me just with bottles upside down for half an hour. Come on. Liquid Fimo, as it gets a bit older, does thicken up a bit. And presumably there are liquids in it that are volatile. So. This is where I want this one. As I say, I'm a little bit worried in case it runs, it's likely to run into the other one. But hey, if I can't be relaxed about this, it's a shame. So those pinks are quite similar. I think I'm going to be reasonably happy with that. And then the dark purple round there. These are the two that are likely to run into each other, but this one's nice and thick at least. So I'm going to try and keep them a little bit separate. and hope I can fill in the black later. Looking at this, it's not as purple as I'd hoped it would be. It's more browny purple. Okay, now I'm happy with that. Now I've got some areas that look as if they need quite a dark green. This dark green that I've got is not very translucent, so what I'm going to have to do is put only a very thin smear of it, I think. Oh, it's not too bad. It's better than I thought. So I've got these little, what look like leaves here. I think I've got a little bit too much colour over that central bit, so I'll be annoyed with myself about this, I think. It's more about doing it quickly. It's already looking a bit like a stained glass window. That's beautiful. And then I'll fill those leaves in with this colour. I can't really understand, oh, I've got another missing bit. I can't really understand these leaves, but I think they'll all be a similar green. Right, I'm going to mix this green down a bit for the next piece with a slightly lighter green. Okay. The wetter it is, the more it'll run, so the fresher the material is, and or the less oil colour you've got in, the more it will run. Oops! Not happy with that. And if it's very runny, it won't leave any trace on the black anyway. That one's not so runny, so it's left a bit on the black. I think I may fill that one in as well. If I choose to use the same green on that bit, I can just fill the black in over the top later. Oops. getting a bit messy trying to speed up here. Right, so I think I probably want a different colour here, but I'm not quite sure what. So I think what I'll do is I'll add some of the blue to the green and see if I can come up with a darker green and put the darker green around the top and around the bottom. So this clear liquid Fimo I'm just filling in. I'm not overfilling it so that I don't get too much flow over into the other colours. So if you do get any colours flowing from one into the other, remove them and then you can redo them. You can use a bit of tissue or a cotton bud to remove bits of stray colour. And that's about it. Just make sure that this liquid Fimo is flowing into the edges, and sometimes a little tap can help it to move, but certainly don't throw it into the oven without checking that it has filled the space properly. I missed one there. Probably best just to leave it for a few minutes to settle. Well, I think that looks fairly beautiful. That little white gap there is just where I'm going to put some more of the black. So I've left the gap to stop those blending in. It's blended in a little bit from the other one, but not too much. Just looking at it, I've got a few bits where the liquid Fimo hasn't run into the corners. So I'm sure it will if I leave it to settle a little bit. I'm not worried about these bits on the outside because they can be cut off later.